So today I want to talk about kind of my goal with this channel, which is I want to share all of my knowledge that I've learned over the last few years about different types of spirituality. So we'll call it, spirituality, etc., with the emphasis on Eastern religions, and particularly Buddhism and a little bit of Taoism. So I'll share a little bit about myself. I am 33. I'm a musician. I've been a professional musician since I was in my 20s, early 20s. And I went down a really bad road with alcoholism and all sorts of drugs, particularly lots of psychedelics, a lot of smoking weed. And there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. If it works for you, it works for you. It didn't work for me. So I eventually, around my late 20s, I had to get sober. And when I got sober, I realized that I had been leaning on these things to try to produce an experience where I felt like I was connected to the universe, right? Especially with, the use of psychedelics. So all that to be said, just to say that was kind of the darkness that pushed me towards this path. And whether or not I got into it for the right reasons, I'm not sure yet. Hindsight's 2020. I think now I'm in a good place with it, and I'd like to share some of what I've learned. So I think the first step to doing spiritual practices is to just start. People overcomplicate this stuff, and they expect to be like, they expect to be at the end of the process when they're at the beginning of the process. There's a book called Start Where You Are by, I think it's Pema Chodron. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her name, but she was a Theravada Buddhist author, and she wrote a book called Start Where You Are. And the book's about a lot of things, and she goes into a lot of different detail about mantras and what they mean. And but the Start Where You Are one's pretty cut and dry, right? We have to just be where we're at. I can't be where tomorrow, because as Alan Watts says, tomorrow never comes. All we have is right now. So the first thing about spiritual practices that I always tell my friends when they ask about it is you just have to start, because if you don't start, you don't start. And one way that you can start, man, I swear by journaling. There's a lot of, when we accumulate trash in our mind, whether it be through our phones or through our jobs or whatever we blame, the thing that we blame that's outside of us. When we accumulate all this trash, it doesn't go anywhere. It sits up there, and people get used to just having a dirty consciousness, if you will. I don't mean that in the you're bad kind of way. I just mean that in the it's messy. It's messy up there. And a lot of people just don't have tools to help themselves. And so that's why I want to start this channel, because I believe that these tools are so simple that a very young kid could learn how to do them and could use them if he would just show up and try it. So I think we don't have to worry about what our belief is. I think we just have to focus on learning. I grew an insatiable hunger for this stuff. I don't know, 4 years ago, maybe. And I just like, I couldn't put books down. Like I would just read book after book after book. And I definitely went down the path of Buddhism very far. But the truth is, man, and I actually know a Nepalese Lama. He's my teacher's teacher, my and a good friend. He's a great human. His name is Jampa. But Jampa says Buddhism is not the thing that Buddhism points towards, right? Like he says, and he doesn't have super concise English, but he says Buddhism not the thing. And what does he mean by that? Well, he means that the thing that Buddhism points us towards is beyond form, and it's beyond. It's what they say. You know, that God, however you choose to believe that, whatever that looks like for you, God is inconceivable. And so when we think about that, it's like, yeah, it's beyond my conception of it. It's everything in its entirety and it's nothing. And it's also neither of those things and simultaneously both of them at the same time. And what I found that was strange was that quantum physics and spirituality and the leading quantum physicists of the day, the ones that I like, particularly there's a guy who has a show on Gaia called, his name's Nassim Haramein. I mean, the dude's just a super genius. And like, he talks about how he used hard math to prove that these things that the ancients were telling us were true. And, you know, obviously his profession is he's a scientist, a quantum physicist, a physicist. So for him to say that is interesting to me because he's saying, look, all these things that we're proving in the realm of quantum physics are alarming to scientists because now they're starting to look like the exact things that religious people told us, like quantum entanglement, like everything is connected, like everything is part of the same stuff. Like there's less and less distinguishment. There's less and less distinguishing between object and observer and more of a relationship that happens between object and observer. So I find that fascinating because when they say we are all one, you know, that's maybe not just some, you know, somebody at a Fish concert on a bunch of acid, though they're not wrong, right? Like everything is one thing if you zoom out far enough. And why does this matter? Because that means that I have some level of control over how I choose to live this life and how I choose to experience this. And if I'm thrown into a bin of hot coal, it's not going to be a good time. Okay. And like, you know, if you're Gandhi or like Jesus or somebody like that, you're going to go into a state of deep meditation, but you're going to feel that shit. But you're going to, you know, I mean, I don't know what those guys are capable of. I have no idea. I only know what my experience is. And that's that most of the things that I thought were so awful and, you know, everything was just always such a big deal. Those things don't seem like a big deal anymore. And I don't think anything changed outside of me so much as my perception changed. And that's why in Buddhism, there are these concepts. They're not concepts. They're called the skandhas. There's 5 of them. There's, follow me here for a second. There's form, there's feelings, there's perceptions, I've heard conceptual thought, like groups of perceptions and all of these. And then consciousness is the web of all those things. So you have form, feelings, perceptions, concepts, and consciousness. And if you whittle back down from your consciousness, you whittle back to the source, you find that there is no separation. There's no separate self. Everything is connected. And our form is only an illusion. And so this matters because, man, it really is what they told me when I was younger. It used to make me so mad. It really is what they said. Hey, man, it's all in your head. It really is all in your head. And like I said earlier, there's situations. If you're burning to death in a fire or you're drowning, it's gonna suck. There's no way around it. But in everyday, day-to-day life, so much of our suffering is created by our own mind, and because we lack awareness that behind the thing that thinks is just an awareness, is just an observer. And the practice of spirituality, the practice of meditation, is to get us back in touch with that, to go back to our source, to go back to the heart of what that we really are, which is one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. I stole that from Bill Hicks, if you're familiar. But it's a good way of saying it. One consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. And so I know maybe not a lot of that was very useful information for right now, but I'm trying to lay a groundwork for anybody who wants to follow for a path that I'm going to lead you down. And it starts with meditation and it kind of ends with meditation in a way, though the meditation, the form of the meditation, the form of the practice changes. Maybe it's one day it's breath. Maybe the next day my meditation practice is at work when I'm playing a gig and everything's going wrong. The sound's going crazy, the crowd's not paying attention, whatever it is, you know what I mean? We're having one of those days where it's like, oh my God. That's where my practice is. And yeah, for me, this practice has began to turn outward, and this is why I want to share with you. So I hope you got something out of this. If you did, hit follow, give me a like, throw me some comments, and yeah, let's try to help each other, man, and drop any questions you have in the comments, and I'll try to answer them with a video reply. Peace and love to you all. Thank you. Have a great night.